for a little bit longer. China is the only competitor with both the intent to reshape the international order and increasingly the economic, diplomatic, military and technological power to advance that objective. It therefore constitutes, and this is again a short quote, America's most consequential geopolitical challenge. And furthermore, the US is on the brink of a decisive decade. Basically China is identified as the United States' major competitor on a global scale, and the national security strategy is aimed at trying to reverse the relative decline of the US in relation to China.
Oh, let's rewind a little, and we'll just go back for a potted recent history of where the evolution of this. If we start with the 1970s, and at that time, relations between China and America were generally stable. So what happened in the 70s and continued through the 1980s, the relationship between China and America?
Well, in 1972, the Nixon administration initiated a rapprochement with China, centred around the Shanghai Communique, and this acknowledged the One China policy and committed both countries to the normalisation of diplomatic relations. And this was in relation to Taiwan. And, accepting really a situation in which Taiwan is de facto independent of China while formally remaining part of China. So it's kind of a deliberately ambiguous kind of configuration. And really from that point right through to the election of Obama in 2008, relations between China and the US were fractious but generally stable, keeping in mind in particular that, up until from the early 70s up until the fall of East European Stalinism, the US and China shared an antipathy towards the Soviet Union.
Right, so they had joined forces in against the Soviet Union, a shared animosity towards them.
That's right, and then China supported George W. Bush's so-called war on terror, which is also, one of the reasons why the US supported China becoming a member of the WTO. And then, of course, we have from around 1982 up until 2008, this is the era of, globalization and free trade, and actually a very large increase in world trade during this period. And during this period of world trade, of course, China was winning big time. It had huge trading surpluses and also an enormous inflow of foreign direct investment. And that combined with very high levels of domestic investment has given rise to a dramatic economic transformation within China, in which it's gone from a relatively poor country to the second largest economy in the world, and in terms of purchasing power parity, the purchasing power parity measure, it's actually already larger than the United States. This is an historically unprecedented economic transformation. 4 decades of such high rates of economic growth, has been absolutely remarkable, and this constitutes a major threat to the United States, because remember that throughout the Cold War, at no point was the economy of the Soviet Union larger than 60% the size of the US economy, whereas some predictions vary, but from around from 2031 onwards, China's economy is predicted on all measures to be larger than the US economy. This will be the first time, certainly since the Second World War, that the US has faced a competitor with an economy that's larger than its own.
Okay. And so we come up after those years, 70s, 80s, we go through 2000s, and then things started to change. The relationship with America and China started to change with the Obama presidency when they recognised this economic powerhouse. Was that the primary reason?
Yes, I think that the Obama administration was becoming concerned about